An issue has arisen as to the rights of white South Africans, both in South Africa, and their right to return to Europe. A certain Brazilian gentleman over the past few days has distributed a petition for people to sign in order to say that white South Africans should have the right of return to Europe, just like Jews have a right of return to Israel. Now this has, inside South Africa, led to quite a few comments, including some people saying that we don't have any right to go back to Europe, and also why should we be concerned about leaving South Africa at all? Now, as you probably know, South Africa is one of the most violent countries in the world. It has been since 1994, when this bunch of criminals took over our country, called the ANC and the South African Communist Party. Since then, we have had de facto white refugees who fled to various Western countries, including Australia, New Zealand, the UK, the Netherlands, Canada, and the United States of America. But they didn't come there to announce, except for one or two people, one in Canada, I think, and one in the UK. They didn't come there and announce themselves as refugees. They more or less tried to follow the legal channels to immigrate into those countries. The issue, however, is that one could argue that until now, there has been a concerted effort by various Western countries to flush white South Africans out of our country, where we've been living and building this country for almost 400 years. We've been here as long as the Americans have been in America. We've been here longer than the Australians in Australia. So we are the real indigenous people of South Africa. A lot of the black people in this country are recent arrivals here. In fact, there's an historian, De Kiewit, who made the claim that we didn't get very many white immigrants in this country because we got so many black immigrants. Be that as it may, those European countries have supported the most radical groups in South Africa with the ultimate, well, one can only derive from that support or deduce from it that they wanted them to actually drive us out of South Africa to some other place. We don't know where. Most of us come either from the Netherlands or Belgium or Scotland or Britain, well, England. So, logically speaking, those are the only countries where we have some sort of right of return. And that issue will have to be discussed, because we very much want to stay in South Africa, but if things get so bad that we are so persecuted and our economic opportunities are completely taken away from us, then we would have no other option but to flee to some other state, like some Jews have fled to Israel. We've also seen, just yesterday there was a court case around our schools. The so-called MEC for education in this province, which is in the center of the country where most of the economic activity takes place, called Gauteng. It's a name which I don't really like very much, but people call it that. He has tried to take away the rights of our children to study in their home language. He wanted to impose English onto them. He wanted to impose English onto the schools. These are Afrikaner schools, and that would have the effect of opening the schools then to hordes of other African immigrants coming across our borders, as well as a certain influx of local Africans who have migrated from rural areas to the cities in this area. Over the last 20 years, the population has grown from 5 million to 15 million in this province. So it has trebled in 20 years. That's none of our fault. This is government policy. They've got the policy of open borders towards the rest of Africa, and they've also done nothing to stimulate rural development. So everybody is flocking to Pretoria, Johannesburg, and the East Rand and other cities in this area. So conditions are getting worse and worse in South Africa for white people. There are also all the legal, the kind of legal campaign against us, where they're constantly making new laws to make it even more difficult for us to trade and to get jobs. And the cumulative effect of the violence, taking away our education, the education of our children, stimulating the influx of people here, all of that is going to put us before this question of, do we have the right to return to Europe or not?